What does it take to be the best miniature painter of all time?
How? I don't know.
But I'm gonna find out. The dream of winning a tasty Golden Demon trophy is a long way away, but that doesn't mean we can't start learning. And today, I'm going to be learning how to use line art in my miniatures, drawing inspiration from a Golden Demon winner. But what is line art in miniatures? Why do we use it? What does it do? And how can you use it to improve your miniatures right now? Well, I've spent all week researching and practicing this skill on not just one, but 3 miniatures, and today you're going to see them all. This is Cursed Crusader Arts. This week I have 3 biblically accurate cherubs to paint up, and they're very interesting miniatures. The wings are full of detailed feathers that have clear layers to them. Then we have the main head with the bulging eyeball, but despite their unusual and slightly creepy look to them, they seem to have a kind and gentle look to them. The tentacle-like optic nerves dangle down from the back of the main eye, and they give me some cosmic horror feelings, presenting a weird and disturbing element to these eyeballs, making me wonder, do they fly or crawl? Maybe both. As cool as these guys are, the main head and tentacles have a limited amount of detail to them, but I want them to look kind of wrinkled and disgusting. But how do I do that with a paintbrush? I need some inspiration. That inspiration came in the form of Sergio Calvo's miniatures. I found myself captivated by the fine line work used to create the details on fabric, bone, muscle, and so much more. I found that Sergio's work transported my mind back to when I was studying fine art in school, where I spent hours analysing paintings by the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, some of my favourite pieces being by William Michael Rossetti and John William Waterhouse. The rich colours and incredible attention to detail inspired me to try some of these ideas on my cherubs, and I figured that I could use these miniatures to try and add more detail to the flesh of the tentacles and head. But before I start painting, leave a comment down below on what inspires your creativity, whether it's painting miniatures, cooking meals, or crocheting blankets. I'd love to hear what inspires you. I started with an undercoat of Chaos Black, and then a base coat of Nagaroth Night to get the base colour down before I start my line work. Mixing Nagaroth Night with a little Corax White allows me to change the hue enough to begin painting in lines along the flesh. For the tentacles, I decided to paint my lines horizontally instead of vertically. But why? Well, I'll take any excuse to talk about my beloved Bloodborne. So let's have a look at the amygdalas, particularly their face tentacle thingies. Notice how in their design, most of the heavy shadows are designed to go along the length of the tentacles. This not only helps our brain to understand the formation of the muscle fibers, but it gives us the impression of the tentacle being much longer and thinner. On my miniatures, I decided to try the opposite, painting my lines to go around the radius of the tentacles. Additionally, I don't just apply a single solid line. Instead, I essentially paint 3 columns of lines so that they all blend with one another, creating that shadow and depth automatically as more highlights are added. I use Drakenhof Nightshade to wash the miniature and push back any details that are too bright, the blue tones keeping the temperature colder instead of using something like purple or red. Finally, a gloss varnish on the tentacles not only makes them look shiny, but it works nicely with the line details. This makes it look like they're constantly in motion, writhing and coiling as the cherub travels across the ground, and it's shown beautifully with the pink tendrils on this other cherub that I painted. I really like this effect, and I think it would be useful for flowing parchment like the Glorious Purity Seal, or something like the intestines of the mischievous Nurgle demon. I wanted the wings to try and translate the celestial power flowing through them, deciding that I would have the colour of the wings change and transition from white to yellow the farther from the eye the feathers were. Sergio's attention to detail provides even more inspiration, particularly with this Valkyrie with her eagle owl. For my cherubs, I painted white over the black undercoat, and then used Lamentis yellow to glaze the central wings, and then washed the outer wings with the darker and more intense Cassandra yellow, giving me a relatively quick and easy transition of colour. By this point I felt I had lost a lot of the details in the feather, so a wash of Nuln Oil was in order. However, in hindsight, I think softening this into a grey may have been a better choice, so I'll try and remember it for next time. This is where the line work comes in. I carefully went over the raised areas of the feathers with white scarf, being careful to try and keep as many of these lines as separate as possible to preserve the details of the feathers. Once this was done, I used the yellow wash and glaze the same way as before to reinforce the original colour. I also tried to do the same thing on this red cherub. The idea was that it was on fire, essentially practicing for my potential rebirth of my old fallen angels. However, this did not turn out as well as I'd hoped. I think my main problem here is that I needed a much stronger contrast in colour, and instead of stopping at a light orange, I could have gone into yellows or even used browns for the darker elements. Now if you've gotten this far and given the sweet smooch to the subscribe button, I've got a sneaky thing here for you that I didn't mention earlier. The red and purple cherubs were both started by painting on top a base coat of Chaos Black. However, the pink and blue one was base coated with Korax White. And what does that do for us? As we thin our paints, they become more translucent, adopting elements of the previous layer beneath. And this is why we enjoy glazes, washes and contrast paints so much. As a result, the pinks and blues are painted onto the white, giving a more pastel look as the colours remain brighter, but are softened by mixing in greys. It also means that the shadows can be more intense, like with the tentacles, or transitions can be gentler on the eye, making the wings look quite soft. Keep this in mind before you start painting your own miniatures, and you'll be on the road to success. And if you're curious on how I learned to approach painting white miniatures, check out this Sister of Battle. Thank you again to Sergio Calvo for letting me use images of his work in this video. If you're curious about his work, you can visit his YouTube channel, which I'll leave in the description below. But whatever you choose to do, make things, have fun, and I'll see you next time on Cursed Crusader Arts.